three things I learned during my service hours were organization, communication, and teamwork. Organization was a big thing because it was a home health, and they have to have all their work in order to be able to do things such as bill or even know the basic things about a patient, like how many visits, who the nurse is, how many visits the PT has done. They also have to have a method on how they collect papers, how they sent papers to go get signed, to be signed by doctors, um, papers they have to put for nurses to sign, and things like the method in which they'll file the papers, the method in which the files are put in order. Not knowing where something is could mess with a whole thing and lead to more troubles later. Another thing I learned was communication. Several of the nurses that work there actually sit near each other, and they have to be able to communicate with one another. Not only that, they have to be able to communicate with other people that are there, communicating with medical records, such as to ask them to pull files for them so that they can look up for the patient. The billing has to be in communication with others to know what they can bill, what they have to wait on, what they can wait a few more days on. Another thing was such as people who weren't even in the office, such as the nurses. The staff person has to be able to communicate with her nurses to be able to tell them or ask them if they are able to see a patient, to ask them who they're going to see that week, or if they can add one more person, so on and so forth. If they don't communicate with each other, then the likelihood of some information being lost and never received could end up with a patient suffering more than they have to, such as maybe a nurse not communicating with the office for medical supplies that she or he might need for a patient, or not, or the staff person not telling the nurse where he or she will go and just expecting them to know. Another thing was teamwork. I noticed that if one person was unable to do something, another person was willing to help them if they didn't have that much work. Asking each other for helps was a big thing I noticed too. For example, if one person had a whole bunch of things to do and probably wouldn't be able to finish them all in a day, they would ask somebody else who they knew didn't have that much work and ask them if they would be kind enough to assist them with some of the things they had to do. In other cases, some people would just offer to help. Teamwork in a way that also they would collaborate to help, not just help each other, but maybe help somebody else who may not realize they need help. And just like any team, I noticed that they still had fun. Like, they weren't bossing each other around. They weren't mean to each other, saying things to each other. They would honestly ask for help, be helpful to each other. Those three things are the major things that I observed and basically learned when I was doing my service hours. And I have to say that it's very impressive.